Alright everyone, it's your boy Zero, and I'm going to be talking about my choice for Game of the Year 2019. Now, there were a lot of games that were released this year, a lot of amazing games, and unfortunately, I didn't get to play many of them. I played quite a bit of Kingdom Hearts 3, haven't beaten it yet. I ended up getting Devil May Cry 5, and I wish I had time to play that game. Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled took up a lot of hours of my life. However, being a remake, I don't feel it really deserves the whole best game of 2019 thing. It's a game that already existed prior, being released in 1999, and then even though the remake is freaking fantastic, I'm still in love with that game, and they're still coming out with more content for it too. However, when it comes to my favorite game, my choice for best game of 2019, I decided to focus on a game that that is different. Not something that you've seen before, not something that you've played before, something that really tries something new and succeeds at it. So my choice is Concrete Genie. Now, some of you are probably watching me, and me saying the word Concrete Genie, you're probably thinking, what the hell is that game? It's an indie game, announced a couple years ago actually, and it caught my interest, me being an artist myself. And in this game, you're basically playing as a boy who is getting bullied, works on his art in his own little notebook. His notebook is torn apart, and your job is to now go find these pages, and using a magic paintbrush, paint your little buddies on the walls, bring them to life, and then play the game with them through that. It really felt like a mix of Uncharted in respects to how you run around, climb things, and jump and stuff, and even like zipline your way down from certain areas. And then of course also the little secrets, the little Easter eggs you find throughout the game as well, kind of gave it the feeling of Uncharted, which I am so down with. But then also it kind of felt like Little Big Planet, where there's that creative aspect of it. When you're painting your own genie, which is what those little monsters are called, you get to choose what kind of body type they have. If they have a mustache, what kind of tail they have, legs and arms and whatnot. And they also have different elements tied to them. So there's electrical, there's wind, there's fire. And you have to basically paint these genies and use them to help solve certain puzzles that'll either open up paths or allow you to access something new, maybe allow you to get a new power or find a new little Easter egg or secret. I found that very, very interesting. You can also interact with these genies. When you paint them, you could always play with them. You can paint rainbows to entertain them. You can paint apples or different kinds of food so they can eat it because they get hungry. If they want you to paint a sun, you can go ahead and do that, and they'll get real happy and start interacting. Through that, it's another way to open up areas and make things look a little bit nicer as well. Exploration in that game is fantastic. Again, it really gives you that feeling of like a new type of Uncharted, but different again. I'm one of those people that gets into a game, explores certain areas, finds every little nook and cranny, and tries to see what's available there. Touching more on the story, main character's name is Ash, and the story takes place in a rundown town called Denska. Ash used to live there. He's still very fond of the area, even though now it's more dangerous. This is also where you meet the bullies that end up bullying Ash throughout the game. And I felt a real connection to the main character. Growing up as an artist as a kid, and also having been bullied a few times throughout my childhood and high school and stuff, I felt a connection. I kind of understood what he was going through. And then having his drawings made fun of and then torn apart, again, as an artist, I kind of feel it. So it's one of those things where I kind of really felt a connection to the game. And then, of course, creating your own little buddies and stuff and using that to kind of create your own world. I felt tied to the game. And then also that area, Denska. As a young kid, I ended up moving away from my hometown. And I still feel very, very fond of it. So I always find myself wanting to go back to my hometown, Washington Heights, Upper Manhattan, where I grew up. kind of felt a connection through Denska and Washington Heights there. So again, I had a real connection to the game. It made me really like fall in love with it. The gameplay style was very different. It was very refreshing. Pixelopus is an amazing developer, and if this is their first entry into like making a big title, I would say keep your eyes on them, because this is a developer where I think they can really grow as long as they keep working at it and keep making more interesting, non-traditional games. And that's usually what I look for when it comes to a game where I choose it to be Game of the Year. The controls are tight, gameplay was very fun, refreshing story, not your regular go beat the bad guy. No, even in the story, the bad guys have a good side to them. You end up learning their story, why they're acting that way. A lot of troubles at home, a lot of troubles in school, a lot of troubles with themselves getting bullied. It's something that really shows everybody's sides. And again, it's what also helped me fall in love with that game. All those reasons combined, plus the fact that they also gave you a fun little VR mini game to play in the game as well, which I did mention earlier in a different video. It was kind of fun. You don't get to do too much in it. It was very 3D like, where you can paint everything around you and stuff like that, little grass, rainbows, trees and stuff like that. It was a nice little distraction, not something that I would really consider a big part of like the main story of the game, just something you can play if you want to on the side once you're done with the main story. All in all though, all those reasons combined, that's why I chose Concrete Genie to be my pick for Game of the Year 2019. Fantastic game, Pixelopus, congratulations, you guys are amazing. And now here's a few shoutouts. Now, there were also a couple of games this year that were released. I did get to play a little bit of, didn't really get to finish. Kingdom Hearts 3 being one of those games I mentioned earlier. Fantastic. The game is, again, tight controls, confusing story, especially if you haven't played previous Kingdom Hearts games, but still very fun. Definitely recommend it for any action RPG fans out there. Then you have Mortal Kombat 11. Didn't get chosen for Game of the Year because it's a fighting game. I've played it before. I'm looking for something new. Then you have the remakes, Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, and Resident Evil 2, and Medieval remake, which still played very similar to the old one. Once you beat the normal game, the remake of Medieval, you also get access to the original Medieval, which I found to be fantastic and a great touch to an ending to an amazing game. Anyway, everyone, that's been my discussion on what I think was the best game for 2019. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you guys in the next video.
Alright, and now it's time for my Game of the Year notes. I just want to take a quick second to do shoutouts, Game of the Year, Worst Game of the Year, and so on. I'd also like to thank our guests, Bio and Bulb, for joining us tonight. That was really awesome of them. But yeah, so right off the bat, I just want to say that 2019 was kind of a year where I think I said it prior, but the year was, it was either between average or just straight mediocre. I didn't feel too excited about anything. I definitely didn't think it was as strong as 2018 or even 2017. Sorry, especially not 2017. So I say that right off the bat, just to give you guys a better idea that I didn't get to play as many games as I'd like because there wasn't too much I wanted to, and then I ended up focusing on older games and games from other times this year. I was not able to complete a lot of games, so it was a challenge to come up with this Game of the Year. That being said, I do legitimately have a best game I played this year and so on. So first, let's start off with the shoutouts. So I want to give a shout out to Death Stranding. I know there's a lot of mixed opinions on that game. I was interested in trying it, but it seemed like a huge gamble. Like I might like it, I might not like it for full $60. Plus, because it's a Kojima game, I expected that it was going to be a giant time sink, and I just didn't have time for that. So I completely avoided that, picked safer choices. At the end of the year, I just ended up going with a bunch of indie games. So my Game of the Year is not considering considering Death Stranding, although I would have liked to try it. It's also not considering DMC5, Days Gone, Sekiro, which was Jeff Keighley's the Game Awards Game of the Year. I'm also throwing in Trials of Cold Steel 3, which my buddy gifted to me, but I didn't even play the first one yet, so I couldn't start on that. I'm a huge Falcom fan, so I would have liked to play it and talk to you guys about it. Could have even been Game of the Year, possibly, maybe, but I don't know because I just didn't play it. Judgment is another one that I want to give a quick shout out to because I did dedicate a bit of time to it. I did kind of like it, but I didn't get maybe more than 10 hours in, and I feel like the story may have not picked up just yet. It was a fine game. It wasn't quite as good as Yakuza Kiwami or any of the other Yakuza games I played, but yeah, I did want to dedicate more time to that. I also didn't actually play Resident Evil 2 Remake this year. I played it Comic-Con 2018, 2019, I don't know, 2018 possibly. There was a demo at that Comic-Con, and yeah, I mean, I played it there, so I had a good idea of it. I saw our buddy Kugla, shoutouts to Kugla, I saw him play it on his stream. I saw all of my friends losing their shit about it, shoutouts to About Names. So I knew that it was a really good game, but because I just recently played Resident Evil 2, the original, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I really didn't feel the need to do it. Still, Capcom without a doubt did a great job on that game. I'd also like to give a shout out to Kingdom Hearts 3. That's a game franchise that at this point getting into feels like getting into alchemy, you know? Like there's just so much before it that you would have to pick up and have to know and have to get into, that picking it up and like getting anything out of the story. I already made my mistake once with Metal Gear Solid 4. I like to play games from the beginning through whatever the chronological order of the story is. I don't like starting that late into the game. So Kingdom Hearts 3 with its like 58 sequels or prequels or whatever, I couldn't do it. I skipped that one entirely. And I also want to give a shout out to Outer Worlds. I love Obsidian. I wasn't too hot on Outer Worlds. I thought it was a fine game, I thought it was really good in some areas, but overall I was a bit disappointed with it, and that prevented me from getting more than, again, like 6 to 10 hours into it. I will definitely finish it because I'm a huge Obsidian fan and I'm a huge Fallout New Vegas fan, but that's really, yeah, I just wanted to give it that quick shout out just to make sure it gets in there. So this part I'm gonna call like the MISC section. I just want to throw in a couple of random things. First off, I did mention earlier when we were doing our voting that Resident Evil 2 Remake was my vote for best remake collection re-release. Technically speaking, I mean, it's good, but my actual choice was the Castlevania Anthology collection because that collection, it gave me so much opportunity to play the original Castlevania games on my preferred platform, on the PS4. And I breezed through Castlevania 1, Castlevania 3 I kind of got into. I got to play Bloodlines, which is my favorite one of all time. So I really liked that anthology. I thought they did a great job. They also give you the Japanese versions of some of the games, or most of the games too, which is really nice. Since there are some differences between them. So technically speaking, that's my favorite re-release or collection or remake for this year. Also shout out to Final Fantasy VIII. Yeah, it would have been a good one, but I spent not too much time on it. I also wanted to throw in some additional categories that we didn't get around to, just real quick. So, and this is gonna sound mean, but the hardest game I found to enjoy in 2019 was Shenmue 3. I played it for about 2 to 3 hours, and I also I consulted Bulb on it because he's actually finished the entire game all the way through. And yeah, I mean, you know, they did a fine job with it in some regards, but the game is just not fun to play because there's a lot of moments where you can't skip dialogue or you can't advance until you've talked to every last person in the town. Like every stone has to be turned before you can move on in the game, and it just feels like a giant waste of time. It feels like a giant it's a constant halt to progression. You never feel like you're getting anywhere because you're still stuck in this town and you have to talk to this person, you have to talk to all the people. It was a lot harder to enjoy, and I thought yeah, it was gonna be a weird game, maybe have some bad writing, but like I don't think they even did a lot of the gameplay stuff right on that. And that's hugely disappointing for what that game, you know, all the hype behind it and how much people really wanted that game to come out. Another award that I have is one that, again, I kind of regret because I know we have some people that like voice acting and stuff like that. But definitely the best performance of the year of 2019, in my opinion, goes to David Hayter for the character that he played in Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. I thought he did a great job. It's always cool to see David Hayter not doing Solid Snake, like seeing him in that role. Like, I know that this is the guy that did Solid Snake, the character that everybody knows and loves, and that's such a big, important character. But here's him doing another thing, and it's a cool character, and it's a badass character, and it's part of a really great game, and I liked watching him develop through the story of Bloodstained Ritual of the Night as a character. So yeah, best performance of 2019 in my opinion in a video game goes to David Hayter. So this next section, it's again, I didn't play that many 2019 games in 2019. I actually kept a list, and I'm gonna probably do this from now on, but I kept a list of all the 2019 games I played and the non-2019 games that I played. The 2019 game list was laughable, and the the non-2019 games list, I practically had to go to the other side of the page because I played so many games that weren't from this year. So I just want to give you 3 quick ones. My favorite non-2019 game that I played was Valkyria Chronicles 3. I really enjoyed it. It was definitely worth going through the trouble of getting that together so I could actually play and enjoy it in English. My best non-2019 indie game was Lone Survivor. I had a lot of fun revisiting it, and I am looking forward to playing it again. It has good replay value. My best non-2019 retro game goes to Donkey Kong 64. Although in retrospect, I may just look back at this and think, actually, it probably was all the original Sonic games, because I've replayed 1, 2, 3, Knuckles, CD, just to kind of see if I could play them, and yeah, I had a lot of fun with that too. But to be fair, it did mean a lot to me to finally be able to beat Donkey Kong 64, since that was like my first owned video game. Okay, so now we move on to the 2 big categories for 2019. We're gonna start off with the worst 2019 game of the year, and in the spirit of this game, I'm going to just give you my opinions on this game by copy and pasting literally everybody else's opinion on this game.
God, I wanted this game to be good.
But in all seriousness, I want to talk about Y2K, and I'm going to have to go off a little bit. If you watched the earlier parts of our Game of the Year coverage, you know that I gave it best soundtrack, and I said that that was the only nice thing I could say about that game. When I was traveling to PAX East more frequently than I do today, I discovered this game, and I immediately fell in love with the concept of it. It was called Y2K, a postmodern RPG. It was basically a love letter to Earthbound mostly, but then also a lot of like classic Final Fantasy games. It went out with the concept of trying to create a modern indie game that pays homage to those games, but also does a lot of stuff and tells its own cool story. And yeah, I mean, it was just a cool idea. It also revolved around the concept of hipsters and like people that are obsessed with like music and are very like educated, very people that like college students, people that are intellectual, people that like to deep thought-provoking stuff. I liked it. I thought this was such a cool idea. The art style also looked really neat. It was hard for me to pin down what I liked about the art style, but yeah, I thought it was different. It was different than anything that I saw at the time for sure. And I also thought it really went well with the concept of the game. So that's me about 6 years ago. I saw that game and I'm like, this is great. If this comes out next week, I'm buying it. When does it come out? Oh, it doesn't come out. They don't have a release date. Maybe like 2 or 3 years. Like, oh crap. So I literally spent like the last 4 or 5 years waiting for this game. Just every single year was like, man, when is this game coming out? When is it gonna come out? When are they gonna give us some more stuff? So you cannot imagine like how much hype I had going into this game. Finally, they did announce it. It was for 2019, or early on. I think it was in like January. They just announced it. Yeah, it's gonna come out in like a month or 2 or whatever. So it came out. I got it. I had my full fanboy goggles on, and I think the problem with that was that it ended up blinding me through a lot of the bad parts of the game. So conceptually, it's fine. The soundtrack and the art, I think, are great. Some people had problems with both, but I thought they worked very well together. If there was just 3 things that they could have fixed about this game, it was definitely to cut down on a lot of the dialogue. There's way too much dialogue, way too much. A lot of the internal monologues were not necessary since I believe his name was Alex. He was just rehashing what was already happening or was just said or what was very obvious. There's countless videos on the internet you could see of people that made compilations of the ridiculous writing and how much they really needed to cut a lot of that stuff out. So they needed to do that. They also needed to fix the gameplay because the gameplay is broken, in my opinion, and in a lot of other people's opinions too. You don't do enough damage, fights drag on way too long. So again, something that needs to cut the thing. I feel like the developer was just trying to artificially extend the life of the game by doing that, and it doesn't work, and it's broken, and it definitely could have used like a patch day one to just, you know, items do more damage, attacks do more damage, all that stuff. Yeah, and then also the plagiarism was, you know, maybe we could do without that. Yeah, so the game was, I didn't look into it any further, so I can't 100% look in this camera right now and tell you that, listen, this game plagiarized this, and that. From what I understand, it was plagiarized. I don't own the book, so I can't look it up for reference, but from the quotes that were provided online, and from what I've actually played in the game, I remember the specific part because at first I really liked this game. It was a clear-cut example of plagiarism, of just copying, pasting quotes from a book the author liked, the game developer liked, straight into the game. No tags, no indication that it was not originally written by him. Yeah, that was really awful. And then from that point, I went down this rabbit hole of like watching YouTube videos of like, oh, this person doesn't like it, that person doesn't like it, that's critical. I only really found one person in favor of this game, and they did a ridiculous amount of work, like making big videos talking about how deep the concepts in the game are, through like a critical lens. And I highly recommend checking those out. But yeah, I can't find too many people that defend this game, and slowly my fanboy goggles began to lift, and I no more could say that I really like this game because it just became apparent that gameplay is all kinds of messed up. They really needed to fix that. The writing is ridiculous. The act of plagiarism, you know, confirmed or not, is not a good thing, 100%. So yeah, overall, I think this is a game that I really wanted to like, but it has a couple of good parts, like the soundtrack, like the art style, and like the base concept. But they did not deliver on anything. They could not execute their goal of creating this kind of love letter to Earthbound Final Fantasy. Yeah, overall, this is like one of the most disappointing things that's ever happened to me with a video game. And that's interesting because, I mean, I've been critically analyzing video games like this for so many years, so it's pretty crazy to think about that. It honestly feels to me like I can now sympathize with everybody that was disappointed by Mighty Number 9, because that didn't live up to their expectations, because that was a giant disappointment. I now know exactly how that feels. This is my Mighty Number 9. So I definitely need to decompress from what just happened. I'm so glad I got all of that off of my chest, but it's now time to come down to the most important aspect of this video, which is the best game of the year. And just like last year and the year before, I have 2 games that I believe were right up there. They're both indie games, because that's kind of what I fell back on this year. Was the AAA didn't really do it for me this year, so for the most part, so I just went to the indie games. And one of those games is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, and the other one of those games is Katana Zero. They're kind of accomplishing the same thing, and I think it's interesting that they're both, like, I'm pairing them up for my game of the year. So as far as Bloodstained is concerned, I would say that it's a game that has really good replay value. I definitely enjoyed playing a lot of it. it was nice to revisit the Symphony of the Night style gameplay, and I would say that it is a fine spiritual successor to Symphony of the Night. He did a lot right. I appreciate the attempt of not carbon copying Symphony of the Night and actually trying to create like a world with different types of characters and different types of monsters and all sort of strange stuff. So it was definitely good in that sense. I would say that some of the cons of Bloodstained are that the graphics don't really do justice to Castlevania in my opinion. I know we have a lot of platforming games with pixel art style graphics, retro graphics, but I feel like they would have been a lot better off if they just went in that direction as opposed to what they did with the sort of 3D-ish CG. I don't think it's good for like a Symphony of the Night style game. I also felt like some of the powers felt useless after a while, or I would get a new power and I'm like, oh, this is a new power, it's completely useless, I'm never gonna use it. That got kind of weird. That being said, there are a lot of powers, so they can't all feel that amazing, but sometimes it was very anticlimactic to just discover a brand new power and then, oh, I just can't use it because it's not really great. Another thing is that it felt pretty grindy. I basically didn't finish the game because the final boss, I wasn't strong enough to fight him, but I didn't feel like doing another hour or so of the game just so I could be a higher level, just so I could get better equipment, better stats, just so I could beat that boss. I kind of at that point felt like I had my fill and I just wanted to finish out the game. But there are certain aspects of it that get locked out by you not being a high enough level, you not having played enough of the game. And here it didn't work very well for me. I thought the grinding was kind of unnecessary for this, even though it is a spiritual successor to Symphony of the Night. I would have just wanted to just blast through the story, and there was like 20 hours of it, so I didn't feel like I needed to do any more than I had already done. So for Katana Zero, yeah, a lot of the pros of Katana Zero, amazing soundtrack. They had a lot of fun mechanics, which is a very fun game to play. The story was pretty cool too. I feel like they got a lot deeper in terms of you actually getting to know the characters than you would in Hotline Miami. Oh, by the way, Katana Zero is a spiritual successor basically to Hotline Miami. So yeah, they did a great job with the characters, interesting characters. The story was pretty cool, and I liked seeing all of the cutscenes. I liked the different things they attempted to do with the cutscenes, with some of the in-between gameplay parts of the game. They did some cool fourth wall breaking stuff, and yeah, I mean, Katana Zero, also great art style as well. That has to be the best looking retro style pixel game that I've ever seen to date in terms of graphics, in terms of art style, in terms of design. It was just so good. Everything felt like it was living and breathing, and just fully 60 frames per second retro style graphics. I love it. On the con side, I would say that it does feel a bit close to Hotline Miami at times. Just that's what I remember coming away from and thinking, like, I know I'm not saying it is a carbon copy of Hotline Miami, but to me sometimes it just felt a little bit too close to Hotline Miami. I really want them to take Hotline Miami as just a guide, but then just see where that takes them. Forget about Hotline Miami, make the game completely unique and do its own thing, using Hotline Miami only as just an initial direction. So sometimes I felt like it was a bit much on that. So my decision comes down to, again, we're pitting these two games that are like spiritual successors to games I already loved before. And the decision comes down to that, well, Bloodstained is a very nice game, and it's does a great job of being a spiritual successor to Symphony of the Night. It does a lot of things well, but I absolutely fell in love with how Devolver and the developer behind Katana Zero were able to reimagine Hotline Miami and give me basically Hotline Miami, but in a new sense, in a new story, different characters, different gameplay also. I liked it a whole lot, and honestly, it filled this kind of void where I feel like I don't need a Hotline Miami 3 anymore. I always wanted them to do Hotline Miami 3, but now I just want them to do Katana Zero 2. I want them to take this and run with it. We have plenty of Hotline Miami, and yeah, I'm so excited about this new property. They did sort of make it seem like there's gonna be a sequel, or maybe just a prequel, who knows, another game in the franchise. So I'm definitely excited if we ever get a Katana Zero 2. You know I'm gonna be playing that. And just to kind of hammer things home, I would say that comparing one to another, Katana Zero had less frustrating gameplay. I spent less time being frustrated about the game, about how the game was designed, and more time just having fun and enjoying it. It was a lot more to the point than Bloodstained, I would say. You know, especially in terms of like not having to grind and whatnot. Just getting through the story, it was like boom, boom, boom. You did everything you needed to do. So I also appreciated that time-wise. That's not the biggest deal, but I did appreciate that time-wise. So yeah, it's more fun to play. And if we're gonna rate them as spiritual successors versus one another, I would say that they both do a great job of it. But I would say that Katana Zero is close enough to the original game, but different in ways I like, whereas Bloodstained is close enough to the original game, but different in ways that I don't like. And that was a huge factor for me. So I gotta give it to Katana Zero, to the guys at Devolver. Yo, Katana Zero is my game of the year for 2019. You did a fantastic job, and I enjoyed the crap out of your game. So that's it for my 2019. This also might be the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed what you see, please let us know. We have just thrown a ton of opinions at you. Let us know in the comments below what you think. Like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. And yeah, I'm looking forward to 2020. 2020 looks like it's going to be a lot stronger of a year, and I cannot wait to get that game of the year to you as well. Thank you so much. I'm Nanners, signing off. Have a great day.